Welcome, welcome! Sit back, relax, and let's jump into an amazing story.
Hey, everyone! I'm here to talk about a guy who really got the short end of the stick. You know the guy I'm talking about, right? The guy who killed his brother out of jealousy, then ran away and became a fugitive for the rest of his life, wandering around with a mark on his head to make sure that nobody killed him. Yeah, that guy, Cain. Now, before we get started, I should let you know that this channel is all about making sense of the Bible. So if you're new here, hit that subscribe button because we release new videos every week and we'd love to have you join our community. And while you're at it, why not leave a like down below? Alright, let's get into this. Outside the garden, life began anew. Adam and Eve had two sons. Cain, the firstborn, and his brother Abel. This probably came as a bit of a surprise for them, since after they left the garden, they were only supposed to have children when they were very old. But as the first humans on the planet, things didn't exactly go according to plan. Anyway, as the boys grew up, they each found their own way of contributing to the family. Cain worked the soil as a farmer, and Abel took up animal husbandry, tending flocks. In time, each brought an offering to the Lord. Now, it is important to understand that at this point there wasn't really a system of worship in place, so it's hard to say exactly what they were doing. Some scholars think that this was more of a spontaneous thing where they just decided to give something to God. Others think that maybe they were following some sort of instinct handed down to them by creation, kind of like animals that are driven to travel to specific areas at certain times of the year. Whatever the case, they chose to bring offerings in hopes that God would look on them favorably. Cain brought fruits of the ground and Abel brought fat portions from the firstborn of his flock. Now, it's important to mention that at this point, the concept of sacrifice wasn't really established yet. So instead of sacrificing an animal and sprinkling its blood over an altar, Abel simply offered the fat portion of the animal and left the rest of it for himself and his family. It seems that this was a better offering than Cain's, because the Bible says that the Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering, but not on Cain's. Now, I can imagine a few different scenarios that could explain why Abel's offering was more acceptable. Maybe the quality of the offering was better. After all, animals are generally more valuable than fruits and vegetables. Or maybe the blood that accompanied the offering was seen as more important. The Bible doesn't say for sure, but some scholars believe that this was the first instance of blood sacrifice in human history. And if that's true, then it makes sense that God would look more favorably on Abel's offering. Either way, the Bible says that jealousy and anger rose within Cain. And while it might seem obvious why he would feel angry or bitter, keep in mind that at this point there was no clear system of right and wrong. No one had ever been told not to kill someone out of jealousy. And if no one had ever been told not to kill someone out of jealousy, then it's reasonable to assume that Cain never thought his actions would be considered wrong. I mean, remember, they hadn't even heard the 10 Commandments yet. Anyway, God spoke to him and asked, "Why are you angry? If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? But if you do not, sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it." Basically, God tells him that if he does what's right, he'll be blessed. But if he does what's wrong, sin will control him, rather than the other way around. That's exactly what happens when we allow envy or bitterness to take root in our lives. If we don't deal with those emotions, they'll quickly begin to control us. But the Bible says that Cain did not listen to God's words, and he lured his brother out into the field, and there he attacked him and killed him. And wheat, that the world's first murder was committed. Talk about a dark day. Humanity had gone from living in harmony with each other and with God to killing each other out of jealousy in just a few short chapters. And if you think about it, we haven't really progressed that far from that point. Even today, many wars and conflicts are fought over things like land and resources. And how many arguments and fights break out every single day between friends and family members over issues both big and small. We tend to forget that we're all created in God's image, all deserving of love and respect. And sometimes we need to be reminded of that. So after committing this heinous crime, what do you think Cain felt? Guilty, hopeless, ashamed? Well, the Bible actually doesn't tell us how he felt, but it does tell us what he said. When God asked him, "Where is your brother Abel?" Cain replied, "I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper?" Basically, he was saying, "What do you care? What happened to him? That's not my problem. Basically, he was trying to play the innocent one, hoping that God wouldn't get mad at him. But God knew exactly what had happened, and he declared that Abel's blood cried out from the ground. Now, while this sounds creepy, the word cried in Hebrew actually means called out, meaning that Abel's spirit was speaking to God, telling him what had happened. Now keep in mind, this is long before the days of Moses, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, anyone like that. So the idea of an afterlife was likely not even on the radar for most people. So when the Bible says that Abel's spirit called out to God, it's safe to assume that he was calling out for justice. And God told Cain, "What have you done? The sound of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground. Cursed are you? You are to be driven from the ground, driven out of the land you live in." Then Cain went out from the Lord's presence and lived as a restless wanderer on the earth. So God kicked him out of the garden, sentencing him to wander the earth, never knowing where his next meal would come from or where he would sleep that night. Now, before you start feeling too bad for him, keep in mind that he murdered his brother and God still went easy on him. Instead of sending him to hell immediately, he gave him another chance. He showed him mercy. The only reason Cain had to wander the earth was because he refused to stay in one place. If he had just stayed put, there is a good chance that someone would have eventually taken pity on him and shared their food or invited him to live with them. But because he was afraid of being killed by his brother's angry family, he chose to wander. But God's mercy didn't stop there. Before sending him away, he placed a sign on him so that no one would kill him. Basically, this was God's way of saying, while you're out there wandering, you're off limits. Nobody can kill you. Of course, this would have made it impossible for Cain to procreate, which would have doomed humanity to extinction. But God made it clear that he was going to have more followers. So this wasn't much of a problem. The Bible says that after leaving God's presence, Cain went out to the land of Nod, east of Eden, where he built a city and began a line of descendants. Some scholars believe that the city he built was actually the first city ever built by humans. And if that's true, then you could say that he actually accomplished quite a lot. After all, the whole civilization that would eventually lead to the Babylonian Empire traced their ancestry back to him. And just in case you were wondering, Adam and Eve weren't done having kids. They also had another son named Seth, through whom people once again began to call upon the name of the Lord. So despite the fact that Cain wandered the earth for the rest of his life, he still accomplished something good. He founded a line of decent human beings who worshipped God, and without him, none of that would have been possible. So what's the lesson here? Well, the Bible warns us not to let jealousy and anger get the best of us. And while it's true that we all have those emotions inside of us, it's also true that we have the ability to choose how we react to them. Plus, the Bible reminds us that God is always willing to show us mercy. No matter what we do, God's mercy is bigger than our sin. He wants us to turn away from whatever we've done and move forward in faith. And while we won't always get a second chance like Cain did, the Bible assures us that if we acknowledge our wrongdoing, God will forgive us and help us become the people He created us to be. That's it for this episode. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to hit that subscribe button, because we release new videos every week, and we'd love to have you join our community. And while you're at it, why not leave a like down below? Thanks for watching. Signing out.
Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next adventure.